I not only want to be a pilot, but I want to be unapologetically me. And I want to bring that feminine energy to the flight deck because I know that that's an asset.
This is Space for All.
Welcome back to Space for All, the podcast where we celebrate the dreamers, doers, and boundary breakers across STEAM fields. Today, I'm joined by Raja Katz, a long-haul airline pilot who's not only flying some of the most advanced aircrafts in the world, but also flying the flag for representation, inclusion, and showing up unapologetically as yourself. We talk about everything from training as a teen glider pilot to fighting imposter syndrome, to Taylor Swift on the flight deck. And yes, we go full Swiftie. Let's dive in.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Space for All podcast. I am super excited to jump into everything you do. You are the first woman of your profession on the podcast, and I've been living and breathing aviation since I was a baby. So I'm so excited. Can you just do me a favor and introduce yourself for all the listeners?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me on. First of all, thank you. I appreciate it. So my name is Raja Katz. I'm an airline pilot. I've been an airline pilot for the past almost 11 years now. I've spent 10 years flying short haul, and I've just last year transitioned to long haul flying. I'm based in Germany, and I'm also a content creator. I do social media as well.
Which is okay, we'll get into that. But can you walk us through your journey in aviation? How did you get started as a pilot?
Sure. Well, I took my first steps into aviation through gliding, which you can start out at a very young age. It's 14 in Germany. I think it's 14 in the US too. So I started out doing that at age 15 because I had to spend an entire year convincing my parents that I really wanted to do that because it's not the cheapest of hobbies. So I would spend like every weekend at the local airfield, just watching, making friends, hanging out with them and not flying. And that's when my parents knew that I was serious about it. And, then I could start, working on my license there. And I first flew solo at the age of 15. So that's when I first flew planes on my own.
15?
And 15, yeah. I flew planes before I drove cars. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a little reverse order with that. But a lot of young kids do actually in aviation. So gliding is really popular among teenagers. So it's pretty young, but it's also cool because you're not that blocked in your head by fears. Sure. Or like you're not overthinking things, so you learn really quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I did first, and then when I finished school, I started flight school. After flight school, which took me about 4 years, it's actually 2 years, but there were some delays.
Yeah, sure.
I started working for an airline, a low-cost carrier here in Europe. And I spent 10 years flying the Airbus A350, which is kind of the equivalent to the Boeing 737.
Okay.
Flying for several airlines here in Europe. And last year, after 10 years, I've transitioned to long-haul flying. Flew the Airbus A330, the bigger version, the long-range version, for a brief period of time. And then was type rated on the Airbus A350, which is an incredible aircraft. I'm so honored to fly it now. And I fly to destinations all around the world, pretty much.
That's so cool. That's really amazing. Now, so for people who don't know, what is gliding when you say you started there?
Gliders are airplanes without engines. Okay. So they fly completely without engines. They get in the air either through a winch. There's a really long cable, several hundred meters long, which pulls them into the air, or they are being towed behind another aircraft. And that's how they get into the air. And they gain altitude by circling in thermals, like rising air. Mm-hmm. That's what carries them further up. And then they will glide and make their way somewhere. And the art of gliding is that you always have to trade that altitude for distance.
Okay.
And you have no other way to gain altitude. So you might end up landing on a field somewhere because you you ran out of thermals. That's actually happening all the time. But there are huge competitions, like worldwide competitions, when it comes to gliding, and it's a really interesting way to get into aviation because that's the most basic way of flying. You really feel the air around you. It's super quiet because there's obviously no engine.
Yeah,
it's either a one-seater or a two-seater, one like behind the other. Really small aircraft, super light, and it's a very direct and basic way of learning how to fly and how to steer and all that. And that's what helped me immensely when it came to flying.
It sounds so dangerous for a teenager to be doing. You're just like,
it sounds dangerous,
falling through the air. It sounds like.
Yeah, actually, you're not falling. You're still flying. Okay. So as long as your flight controls, the things that will that control which way you're going, as long as those are working, which they do in a normal flight, you're completely in control of what's happening. And also, we also practice maneuvers like spins or stalls. Like when you're no longer flying, you can actually make that happen and then work your way out of it. And as long as you know what's happening, and that's really essential to learn that early on, you're completely in control in whatever situation you might end up in. So, yeah, but I understand that from the ground, it might look dangerous. Yeah, and it's crazy because now that I'm so used to this hyper safe environment of a commercial aircraft, and sometimes I still like visit my old flying club and end up in a glider here and there, flying with friends. It doesn't feel as safe as commercial aviation, but it is still very safe. Yeah.
It's more like a sport, it sounds like, in a way.
Yeah, it is.
In comparison.
But, and you're more or less completely in control of your own safety because you're the one checking your aircraft before it lifts off. So you're responsible for checking it. And when you did your checks and you're ready to jump in there, that's on you.
Super cool. That's a very cool story.
I enjoyed it.
I bet. So that's how you got started. What was your training like? What did you have to go through? And were there any moments where you were like, shoot, I signed up for the wrong thing. I'm not made for this.
Well, not the wrong thing, because that's all I ever wanted to do in life. That's like the one dream I always had, like become a pilot later on. So cool. But, well, let me tell you, thank you. I appreciate that. But it can be a blessing and a curse, because if that's like your only plan ever, there's no plan B, because nothing ever interests you as much as that. And that's really the only thing you want to do. That puts a lot of pressure on yourself when you're like 16. So, I don't think I've ever thought that I might have signed up for the wrong thing, but I've constantly questioned myself if I was good enough for this and if I was actually going to be able to succeed and pass all the exams and the tests and the check rides and all that. So there was a lot of fear of failure, like constantly, and also imposter syndrome. I mean, most people know imposter syndrome, like this psychological pattern, this behavioral pattern that your mind is always telling you that you kind of cheated your way up, and someday people will find out, and you're gonna lose it all because everyone's gonna find out that you're not actually skilled, but you're just an imposter, and that's so not true. But it can be a burden if your mind is telling you that,
for sure,
you're that all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what was what did you do in order to get your initial pilot's license? And then from there to start flying the long range planes?
So when I went to flight school, they would train me to obtain my what's called ATPL. Okay. It's Airline Transport Pilot License, or MPL. There are several licenses here in Europe or in Germany, but it's the commercial pilot license that's for the big aircraft, like the airline ones. Okay. And that's the license you need in order to fly big passenger planes. But what you also need is what's called the type rating. So it's not like with cars that once you have your driver's license, you can drive whatever car you want. But with airplanes, you need a specific license for each airplane. So if I was to fly the 737, I could not do that with my license tomorrow because I'm not rated on the 737. I would go through probably 3 months of training or so to get familiar with. Yeah, there would be theory training involved, classroom training, as well as a lot of simulator training too, before I would actually see a cockpit from within. So that's what you need to do for every specific aircraft you fly. And if, as I said before, I've spent 10 years flying the Airbus A350, which is a short and medium range airplane. It's very common. It's one of the most common planes on the planet. And it's really cool. I love being an Airbus pilot. But in order to fly long haul, I needed to switch to a bigger plane because, the endurance and the range was not long enough, obviously. And that's when I started training for the A330, which is under the same license as the A350 that I'm flying now. It's a little complicated, but nonetheless, they're both long haul planes with 2 engines, around 300 passengers. And they can go, I think, to every destination within 12 to 14 hours of flight time. So
wow, that's very, very cool. While you're training, this is kind of like a random question, but are you still taking flights and stuff like that while you're training for these larger or different aircrafts for 3 months?
Yes. So the training is actually theory training first, then simulator. Start with the normal stuff and then go through all the emergencies and all that. And only when you're proficient in all those emergencies and whatever could possibly happen up in the air, that's when you start kind of like training on the job. So we call it line training, meaning that me as a first officer, co-pilot, what's what they used to call it, I would fly not with a regular captain, but with a training captain. So an instructor pilot. He's a captain too. We do regular line flights, but he's always also there to instruct me, because the one thing that you cannot train in the simulator is the daily operation, everything that happens around the plane, the boarding, the deboarding, the ground handling, fueling. There's issues with the seating back there, cabin crews coming in and having questions and all that. You can't train for that in the simulator. Yeah. The simulator is strictly procedural. Yeah. So you might need some help when you start off flying a new plane. With regards to that, and that is what they are for. And that's only for a couple of flights, though. So once you've completed that, there's a check right in the end. And then when you pass, you're ready to go. And that's when you're on your own. Kid.
That's amazing. Okay, so
I really enjoy it.
It just sounds, you can like hear the passion and how you speak about being a pilot. So obviously, like many parts of the industry, there are not a lot of female pilots. I don't know if it's gotten any better over the years, but being a female pilot, have you had any unique challenges that you've had to overcome just because you're female?
Let me say that I, in my position, am very fortunate because I fly for an airline that is very forward thinking and has a zero tolerance policy when it comes to discrimination or any form of, sexism, chauvinism, whatever. So if that were to happen, I could absolutely report it and there would be consequences for the person. So I'm very lucky not to face those issues in my airline. But I know from a lot of other female pilots that they do. And I think it has to do with the cultural differences tied to various countries also. Not only being a pilot in that country and the way, for example, men view you as a female pilot, but also just the sheer concept of a woman being higher up in hierarchy than a man is unheard of still in a lot of countries in this world. So I've faced that a couple of times flying to those countries in the past. flying short and medium range. And yeah, that was a very formative experience because I'm very well aware of how privileged I am in my position, being a female, but still, being white, being with an international airline and all the perks that come with that. I know that I've had the great opportunities in life, really. And so I'm kind of the tip of the iceberg. And if someone is discriminating against me, I can only imagine what it must be like for other women who are not that lucky. And there was a very, as I said, formative experience that absolutely shaped the way I'm thinking about how women are being treated in parts of the world. Having said that, I'm, as I said, fortunate enough not to have that in my day-to-day. I know that a lot of my female colleagues do face that. And that's a shame.
Is it getting better? Like, are there programs or support systems for women who are either already a pilot or looking to get into aviation out there?
Absolutely. There is a lot of programs, and I think that the needle is shifting in the right direction. Things are still changing very slowly. It could be faster. But the culture is definitely shifting towards being more inclusive. And there are also many programs out there. I've told you before that I am with this great organization called Elevate Her. It was founded in the UK almost 2 years ago, and Elevate Her aims at increasing the number of women in aviation, not only like in cockpits being pilots, but overall in aviation. And it's an amazing platform that we have. We have this wonderful website providing all kinds of resources for free. So you just create an account and you have access to whatever information you need. If you're, for example, a young girl wanting to get into aviation, but you have no idea of aviation, you don't know where to start, you find all the information there. And we also do live events and connect with like government institutions and big industry partners. So that's just one example of how programs try to promote women in aviation and change the not only the number of women in aviation, but also increasing representation, because I think that's one of the things that really need to improve. Because if you're a young girl and you're not seeing anyone even remotely looking like you in the field that you want to pursue, you might really think that's not for you. And that would be such a shame if people would just abandon their dreams and not do it because they think it's not for them. And that's what we want to change. And
Absolutely. And I think it's one thing, it's one thing to have representation in like the movies or Star Trek or something like that. That's a good influence on like little girls who, are like, I want to be that pilot. But even though we have that, in the cinemas and in different TV shows and stuff, from my view, right, my 30-foot view, when I hop on a plane, 90% of the time it's 2 male pilots still. So things like Elevate Her and stuff, that's really, it feels like that's going to really make the difference to start moving the needle. Even though it's only, Elevate Her's only 2 years old, which I didn't know, by the way. I thought they were around for longer.
Yeah, it's incredible what, especially the founder, Catherine, has achieved over those 2 years. It's incredible. She's such a hardworking personality, but also everyone on the team, really. They do fantastic work. And I'm so honored to be a social media ambassador for Elevate Her. And I think, to what you alluded to earlier, I think the things are slowly improving in the industry, but what I think really needs to change in people's heads still, pilots' heads, as I said, not with my airline, but overall, is to perceive women flying planes not as this burden that needs to be included because we're all inclusive and they belong here, yada, 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 but that they see the potential that women bring to the table. Like, we bring stuff to the table that no man can. And I think that really needs to change in the minds that we're not a liability, we're an asset. And that's something that I really would like to see change more. The more diverse a team, the better the ideas, the better the decision-making, problem-solving, and overall performance of a team. That's my profound thinking. So yeah, I hope that's the next step.
I mean, because your passengers are both male and female, right? Or you know, whatever they identify as. And so it's important to have those perspectives on the team. And I just...
That's actually such a great thought. Sorry to interrupt. I've never thought about it from that perspective. That's amazing.
Thank you. Right? Like, I have nothing to do with being a pilot.
Sorry, continue.
But like, I'm thinking like, oh, it would be super nice to hear a woman over the comms. Like, that would be super cool. But yeah, it's not... I could probably count on my hand the number of times, and I travel a lot for work, the number of times that I've had a female pilot. Which is, it's very disappointing if like I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, oh shoot, like I've always noticed that, but that's just been the norm.
Right. And I think when you're a female pilot, it's totally up to you whether you want to increase that visibility and increase that representation or not. So I've always been really eager to make passengers announcements and mention that I'm flying the plane, not for my ego, but just to, drop the thought and just put it out there. And it's funny that I actually say that because I've seen a reel on social media the other day from that female captain who made that turbulence announcement. And you know how we make passenger announcements when there's turbulence, right? And it's a pretty standard thing. You're actually just supposed to say you return to your seats, we're switching on the fasten seatbelt signs and all that. But she had this unique way of putting things. And what she said was, we're flying through an area of local turbulence. Please return to your seat. Keep your seatbelts fastened. I know there's a lot of anxious flyers among you. And I just want to say that we are here to keep you safe. And our first and only priority up here on the flight deck is to keep you guys safe. And we will. Period. And that made such a difference. The reel went viral, by the way, but I was like, I'm going to say that every time I make a turbulence announcement from now on. And I did. And I had cabin crews coming up to me after the flight, like, that was awesome. People loved the announcement. And so we can, of course, we can learn from each other. We always learn from each other every day, right? But that was something I was like, I have never heard a man say that. And I don't want to like play the gender card here or anything. A man could very, very well have said that, but they have not, to my knowledge. So she had this unique way of being empathetic with people who hate flying, who are back there and they start feeling the bumps and they're like having nightmares in their heads about what's going to happen. And just letting them know, not with it like through a statistic and some rational argument why flying is safe, but just having that empathetic voice telling them, we will keep you safe.
It's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So, on to the different types of planes that you fly. What is? I think I know your favorite, but what is your favorite plane that you fly today?
It is absolutely the Airbus A350 that I'm flying now. It's just a state of the art aircraft. It's extremely fuel efficient. It is super quiet. It is aesthetically pleasing. It is really beautiful because it's new. And a lot of people make jokes about Airbus saying that it's just a huge computer flying the plane. And I understand where they're coming from. And I understand that other planes like the 747, the Queen of the Skies, like the jumbo jet, are beautiful planes. And really, the 747 is so iconic. It's a legend and made so much history. But I'm feeling that it's a beautiful plane and it's made history, but that's where it is.
Yeah,
kind of in the past, no disrespect, but the A350 is the future, right? And so I'm so honored to be able to fly that.
What's the next? Do you have like another plane that you want to, that you're like looking forward to training to fly?
Actually, I feel so incredibly blessed to be able to fly that plane at my age, because even the A320 that I've flown before is to some people like end of career goal.
Wow.
So I'm incredibly fortunate with the planes I got to fly. So I wouldn't ask for anything more, because I feel like I have this abundance of not only luck, but also just fortune and great opportunities in my life. And I'm incredibly thankful for that. So I really want to honor what I have now by just showing up to work prepared and doing a good job, hopefully. No, I'm actually always doing my best. And let's see what the future holds. But
well, you've worked your butt off to get there.
We'll see.
You deserve being as young as you are and being able to fly these planes. It's incredible. What do you think the most, and this you might have already said this, but the biggest misconception is about pilots?
There are a few. My favorite misconception, if you want to put it that way, about being a pilot is that the autopilot does most of the work or all the work for us, because it does not. So spoiler alert, it does not. What it actually does is it flies the plane during cruise flight, because we need our hands free for other stuff. So when we're busy during cruise flight, that doesn't mean that we are busy flying in a straight and level line, because that would be that would not be smart for us to be busy doing that and not have our hands free for other stuff. So what around, I would say probably 80% our works look like during cruise is constantly being mentally ahead of the aircraft. So preparing like the next steps, checking the weather of our airports, checking the alternate airports, checking possible en route alternates in case something were to happen now. There's a medical emergency. Where would you go? And that's not the time when you start thinking about it. That's when you have your mind made up where you want to go. So you can just, go right into action and do whatever needs to be done. So we're constantly working on our plan B, plan C, and working ahead. Also managing our workload. So if we know that the approach is going to be very busy, we try to start our planning and our briefings and preparation and all that ahead of time. So we don't rush into it and everything is happening at once. So we try to balance that out a little bit. So most of what we do during cruise flight is not actually flying the plane, because that doesn't require a lot of work. And that's why the autopilot helps us. So the autopilot is a great resource for us to relieve us of that actual work of flying during phases where it's not really relevant if you do it or the autopilot does it. So, but the takeoffs and landings, obviously, we do ourselves.
Yes, I assume so. I can't. My heart, like you literally said takeoff and landing, and I'm like, oh my God, that would stress me out so much.
Oh, by the way, Valerie, did you know that the planes can actually land by themselves? Okay. So there's what's called auto land. Planes can actually land automatically. If there's fog, we can't see the runway. It's kind of it's a pretty sophisticated system, but you can tell the autopilot, or you can actually just not switch off the autopilot. There needs to be systems in place on the ground, and the airport needs to be they needs to have the equipment for it. But that's what happens during winter in Europe all the time. The planes land actually by themselves. Yeah, we don't touch it. So we're always ready to take over in case something happens, obviously. But usually there's nothing wrong with the system. So it's really, I've had several approaches where I couldn't see the runway at all. And it would say like the autocallouts for the altitudes. It would say like 150, 40, 30, that's feet. Above ground, you see nothing. There's just fog. 20 retard, and then you touch down and you're on the ground. It's pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah, that's
super
amazing.
Safe.
Wow. The first time that you trained on that must have been a wild experience. Yes.
You mean the Autoland? Yes, that was a wide experience, because we have minimum visibilities that we need for a certain type of approaches. And once the weather goes below that visibility, you can't perform that approach. You need a better approach or better systems for that. So the a last resort will be that auto land system. So it's not always that you see nothing. Sometimes you just see it later than you need to see it for the other approach, if that makes sense. So because the visibility is slightly below that minimum. And so it's not always that you see nothing, but no matter the scenario, we obviously train that in the simulator as well, many times and every 6 months. It was pretty wild. The first time I flew that in the simulator, I was like, are we really not going to do anything now? It's going to land by itself. How are we supposed to, like, what if something happens? You're like, no, you've checked everything works fine. And if you checked it over and over again. So yeah, just trust the system. It's going to be fine.
I want to jump into our mutual love. We have a passion that we love to talk about. And that passion is our love for Taylor Swift. So let's talk about Taylor Swift first. One of the things that you and I like to talk about is the impact that she has made on our lives as a woman, and just her business sense, and just the way that she has taken the music industry by storm, and then the world by storm. How has Taylor Swift impacted you?
Thank you so much for asking, Valerie, because conversations like that are very rare for me. So I really appreciate you asking. Swiftie to Swiftie. Taylor, as you said, not only her music, but first and foremost, her music has impacted my life in a way that nothing else really has done before. I enjoy her music and the melodies, and how she's such a great composer, but I'm a poetry person, so I love lyrics. I'm really big on lyrics, and I can't not listen to lyrics. So the way that she's able to capture feelings and put words to feelings and situations that each and every one of us has been through at some point, makes me feel seen in a very intimate way. In a way that not many people in my life can see me. And I think that's actually the secret of her success. So her becoming a billionaire by making people feel seen and putting words to their feelings is like the best way of becoming rich, in my opinion. So more power to her.
Yeah. It's, I love that you said that you feel seen, and because her lyrics do feel intimate to you, even though, she's this massive pop star, and, she started out in country, teardrops on my guitar and things like that. And we kind of grew up with her in a way, where,
Absolutely.
I always felt that every album she came out with was I was in that same part of my life. And I love that little girls are now relating to that, and just all, still growing up with her and all of her music. But when she came out, oh my God, I'm blanking, but I forget what the name of the album was. Not Tortured Poets Society. What was after?
Midnights?
What was before Tortured Poets Society?
Midnights.
When she came out with Midnight, it just was how did you still see me? How is this? How are we still on the same path? I've got kids, I'm married, you're not, but somehow we're still emotionally in the same place. I was blown away. Yeah. I still am. And I am so excited for the Reputation album to come out. Obviously Taylor's version. What do you think is in the vault? I need that vault.
I said that to a friend the other day. Can you imagine that there is going to be actual vault tracks on the rap album? I mean, yeah, the future is looking bright. So,
and she's obviously holding it for a reason.
Yeah, and she's fooled us for so many times. I can't even tell you how many times I've sat here really thinking that Midnight's going to be the moment. Yeah.
And then it's nope, try again.
Nope.
I know. I'm so excited for that moment. And
for sure.
I cannot wait until Reputation comes out. Obviously Taylor's version.
Oh my God. We need to record another complete podcast recording just about this. I love talking to you about Taylor Swift. This is
as a woman, I'm very particular about what I keep private and what I care to share. And I'm in sales, right? So I'm talking to customers every single day, and it's important that you share some parts of yourself because you want to be able to connect with your customers. But I'm very specific about what I share for a few reasons, but primarily I'm worried that as a woman, I'm going to be viewed as weak, or, I'm going to be judged for different parts of my life or lifestyle. In your role, do you keep certain things private on purpose in in a similar way?
You mean when I talk to colleagues and coworkers?
Yeah. When you talk to colleagues mostly it would be colleagues.
I mean, obviously you keep something private because you don't know the person, but to avoid judgment, I don't think I do that very often because I don't need to, because fortunately, when I mean, it always depends on chemistry, right? But usually when it comes to discrimination, as I said, my airline feels like that sort of safe space. So I don't really live in that constant fear of being judged. And that's such a good thing for me. And I'm so grateful to be in that position. I know exactly what you feel like, though. Because I have that like in my personal life too, like situations where you're like, am I going to share that or not?
Do I trust you yet?
Right. Being a pilot, though, actually, sometimes I will share things on purpose just to work against those stereotypes. For example, stereotypes about female pilots. What does it mean to be a woman flying planes? You don't have to be that science nerd type of personality that's rather shy and does her thing. You can wear makeup, you can be feminine, you can be a Swiftie, for example. I tell like all of my captains if they want to hear it or not that I love Taylor Swift. I will always wear the bracelets, because what I've learned throughout the years is that I not only want to be a pilot, but I want to be unapologetically me, and I want to bring that feminine energy to the flight deck, because I know that that's an asset. And I know that I'm not a worse pilot, or I'm not worse at like performing or doing whatever it is that needs to be done at the moment because I'm a woman. And I know that that's not something that every woman can say. I know that's, as I said, very fortunate and lucky me. But wearing a uniform and being in a position where your skills are not constantly doubted puts me in a position of freedom to actually show that I'm a Swiftie. Because what are you going to do? Yeah, I fly planes for a living. I fly 300 people for a living every day, and I still listen to Taylor Swift. Why not? And I feel it's really important to get this message out there to make young girls feel seen, because they, as I said, they don't need to conform to a certain stereotype or fit into a box in order to become a pilot. I want them to feel seen too. So that's kind of like my mission too. But I totally understand where you're coming from, and it's just second guessing what you're sharing on that. Makes sense, because not everyone is like inclusive and open-minded.
No, but I think it's important to do that's important, because women or girls see you and they're like, hey, I can still be myself. And I think it's important for people like us, for me to get out of my own head and be like, no, it's okay that I'm a massive Swiftie. And I never hide my Swiftiness, but it's okay that I'm a mom, and it's okay that no, you can't. It's just like I wear that right on my sleeve.
If there's a song playing, I mean, you're not gonna not sing. I mean, sing a lot.
But it's so important. But on the Taylor Swift note, I have two very important questions for you.
Please, Valerie, I can't wait.
If you as a pilot had a theme song, a Taylor Swift theme song, what would it be?
It's funny because I don't know how it's like with you, but I'm one of these people where music is constantly playing in my head, like all the time. I have this constant soundtrack, and for every situation in life, I have music playing in my head. So when I'm like in flight and seeing like a beautiful view and a beautiful sky, it's always Maroon that comes to mind. It's always like the first melody that's in my head. I'm not sure why. There are so many moments where I just feel bliss and enjoying the moment so much, and I'm just being grateful for being able to experience that. And that's usually when I think of Long Live. And also, speaking of increasing the number of women in aviation and female pilots, long live the waltz we crashed through. I mean, happy Women's History Month. So, yeah,
yes,
that's for sure.
Yes,
2 songs.
Very good point. That's beautiful. Because then my theme song's like, "Look What You Made Me Do."
Oh yeah,
like it's like all the reputation. Like
I never trust a narcissist.
Exactly. But like that's my beat. That's my drum beat in my job.
That's actually on my workout playlist. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so the second Taylor Swift question: if you could fly Taylor anywhere in the world, where would you take her?
Wow. Probably away from London. That's just not her city, let's be honest. Sorry, this is insider talk, but yeah, away from London to Nashville, Tennessee, where it all started for her.
Oh.
We would be flying.
Yeah.
It will be a night flight probably, and we would be flying over Greenland, and we could see the Northern Lights and just share a beautiful moment together, enjoying the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis. That would probably be.
She'd probably be like actively writing a song in her head.
I would hope. Yeah, that would be my secret hope to
so
give her some inspiration there. But not me, obviously, with the Northern Lights. Yeah, that would be the perfect flight, I think. I don't think Reading, Pennsylvania has an airport, but I'm not sure. So let's do Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, I think you have to fly into Philly, I believe. Maybe. I don't know, actually. I should know that.
Well, no.
Oh,
really.
Yeah. Walk the Christmas tree farm. Yeah, you saw her. Where did you see her?
In Gelsenkirchen, which is, I know it's really hard to pronounce. It's a city here in Germany. Yeah, she did 3 shows here. She actually did, I think 7 shows in Germany, Hamburg, Munich, and Gelsenkirchen.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I was at Gelsenkirchen night 3. It was in July last year. It was the best night of my life, obviously.
When she tours again, I'm absolutely coming out.
Yeah, you could
to a show.
You've not been to the Eras tour, have you?
No, I was. I went to. I was at one of her Philly stops.
Oh wow,
her Philly stop.
Amazing.
So like very beginning.
Oh great.
Yeah, it was like super early.
Did she do the head thing with the little kid already, or was that something that developed later on? Can you remember?
Did she do the hat thing? I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember. It was so. I think. Was it like the 7th show or something
wow,
like that?
That early on.
Like it was super early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Never
super
mind.
duper early. So there's a lot of things that she ended up doing, by the end of the tour, especially in the Europe leg.
Yeah.
Versus the first leg that she did. So, yeah, but I mean, it was still absolutely amazing, obviously. Who wouldn't trade it for anything? It was obviously super cool. And I'm going to be honest, because it was so early in the tour, I didn't know what to expect. None of us did. So I wore heels. I wore heels, and I didn't realize that her set was actually 3 hours. I thought the whole thing was a total of 3 hours.
Of course, because you guys didn't have all the reels and everything that would spoil the entire thing.
So much pain by the end.
Oh no.
Yeah. But it was so, oh my God. It's amazing. If she can be dancing in heels, I can deal with wearing my heels.
Right. That's what I keep telling myself when I work out. How hard can it be? She can run and sing for 3 hours and 20 freaking minutes straight. It's such a trooper.
She really set the bar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she set the bar super high.
Like she always does.
She always does. Well,
Queen.
thank you. I am just so happy to have had the opportunity to talk to you again today. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Valerie, for inviting me on. I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Space for All podcast. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or iTunes, and you can watch full episodes on YouTube. We hope you will join us again for the next episode of Space for All, where we can all find a place in space.